And we're live. Hey guys, this is the Comic Book Weekly show. But we usually do a timer, but that's okay. That
I'm sorry,
new
I forgot
year,
about that part.
new year, new us. Not new year yet, but hopefully Mike will be coming on shortly. He said he would, so he might just be running late. But we want to jump in because there's actually a ton to talk about. Me and Brant before the show, we're talking about how many books have come out and how many news pieces are coming out. And we've been doing this thing for a long time. We've been doing this show for a long time. We've been reading comics for a long time. And this is the first year I remember this many comics coming out, because back in the day, especially pre-COVID, it used to be timed in a way that normally in the new year, there would be like 5 comics that come out.
Yeah. Yeah, and usually it'd be like DC and Marvel would only release 1 or 2 books.
But
And
they're
yeah,
big books.
big books usually. Or at least one of them would release something big or annuals. But this is crazy. So many books. We were chatting, the three of us, earlier today, and we were like, man, we got like 20 something books. Mike and I, and Kat's like 15 or something. It's those are big hauls for us. So
It
it's
is.
crazy.
Yeah, I know. Comic Nation, they say, looking forward to the stream. Always good to hear people with positive content about modern stories. Thank you. We really appreciate that. We try our best there. And we got Parker Luck in the comments. We got GT Key Comic. We got Tevia. So thank you for joining us. We'll mention this again later in the show, but next week we are going to take off because it is the holiday week and there is a lot of books, but I'm sure we'll talk about it at another point. Those books, they're not huge books that are coming out next week. It's just a big mass of them, but we thought we'd take the week off, and we did take the last week off, and we're sorry for not giving you notice on that. There's just a lot going on. I got my wisdom teeth taken out, so that I wasn't even in like really a state to talk. So we just decided, and I thought I'd feel better at that point. And then we all had other stuff going on too. So preparing for the holidays. Tevye says, "Are there any worst books of the year?" We don't do that. We I forgot who mentioned it. Comic Nation US said, "We try to be positive. Try not to be like this is the
Yeah.
worst book ever."
The previous version of this show, we did that, but we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, we didn't feel great about it. So we and also YouTube's very different back then. I think YouTube kind of celebrated when you talked about that, and I think we've changed a lot over the years in that regard. So we don't want to celebrate bad books. So or be the opposite of celebrating bad books. We try to be a bit more positive and constructive, I think is the best way to put it, because you can still be constructive and not say this is the worst thing you've ever read.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to be constructively criticizing. Yeah,
I think so.
criticizing.
But other things
Critical,
we're
critical. That's the word.
critical. There you go.
Yeah.
Other things we're going to do during this show is talk about the best comics of the year too. Something we used to do is an award show, and then after that, we used to do blog posts, and now we are like, you know what? Let's condense this and just have a free for all and just talk about the comics we really enjoyed this year. So we'll be doing that. So let's jump into comics though, because I think that's where we're going to start. There's a lot of news to talk about. There's a lot of best of stuff to talk about, especially as we wait for Mike and see if he jumps on. So yeah, let's go. I remember that award show. Good times. Yeah. And then we got SM Down in the comments too. So yes, let's go into those comics.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me pop over to that screen because I left that completely. All right, so let's talk about one of the big books that did come out this week, which is Titans Beast World #2. The first issue really surprised us. Yeah, it really surprised us, and it's continuing. Great creative team on it. The story is a lot more interesting than we anticipated, I think. Again, like you said, a really solid issue this time around as well. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. I read the Gotham one right after it, so I'm getting details mixed up. But
Batman became a bat in the end of this one.
Yeah,
that was like the big moment in this issue.
Okay, I couldn't remember which book that happened in. So yeah,
they continued it in the Gotham one, so they did a continuation story.
Yeah, because at the end, Nightwing is like, I got him subdued, and then he quickly got away from him in the beginning of the Gotham one. That's why it's all running together for me. But yeah, that was the major thing that happened there. And like Amanda Waller, approaching like the president and stuff like that, and saying, we're not talking about the Justice League. Nightwing and his little buddies can't, take care of this threat and that kind of thing, and trying to get into some kind of power, big power move for Amanda Waller. So,
and they've been
I
doing
liked
the
it.
build up to Amanda
Yeah.
for honestly for a while. But yeah, no, I liked it too. It's so weird because I can't say if someone says what's the best event that ever came out. I don't know if I'd recommend this. I don't know if it's like, wow, this is the best event, but I feel like it's been so long since we've had just an event that makes sense and is solid and moves that I think this feels really good. Where it is your by the numbers event, but in a good way. Like it does everything in an event what you want in an event. It has good art, has solid character work. It moves the plot. It feels like it's bigger than a regular comic. So I just think it's doing what it's sold to do.
Yeah, and another thing that we kind of learned in this one, that these spores jump to more powerful hosts. So like it jumped from whoever it was in before to Batman, and then like they were like warning Starfire and Wonder Girl not to let it get them, because then it'd be all over because they're too powerful. And I think it got Black Adam as well in this issue. So yeah, it's just this feels like one of those classic good, strong events that we've been missing. But like you said, it is a little by the numbers. We talked about that last time, that it was, it's very similar to like a Blackest Night, or like, other events like that where something infects a bunch of heroes or whatever. But it's still unique, and it's being told well, and it's much better than the lead up to it was, which was not great. So.
Oh, I definitely agree.
That's
Yeah, I don't even remember what the lead up was in Titans.
in
Yeah, that wasn't.
Titans. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that wasn't great. Which Titans comes out next week, I want to say, or maybe not this week. I think it's
Is it
next
next week?
next week. Yeah, and it's so
Next
weird
week,
because I
yeah.
know we were both like, oh, we're gonna drop that book or not. But now this event's been so solid, and also it's a book that
Yeah.
I never feel like is bad. It's just more of like, oh, is it necessary to read? So we'll see where. I mean, it has great art, so in that regard,
Yeah.
it's harder to drop.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So next up is Radiant Black 27 and I guess 27.5. I did read both. I don't
I
know if
did
you did or
too.
not, but
No, I
okay.
read both, but it's so interesting. My store never has both. So luckily I get some comp copies. They like send reviewer copies. So I get that, but then also like I get to read it digitally. So like I always can read both parts, but I have so many torn feelings for this because I actually really like this issue, but I also hate
Uh-huh.
having to read the same book twice. And I think it's
Yeah.
really difficult for retailers. They're like, we got shorted one. It's really hard. It's such a innovative thing, and not I
Yeah.
don't think really anyone has done it, but I think there's little quirks because of it. It's like, oh, especially
Yeah.
like parts coming into it. It's like, oh, do I really want to read two things at the same time? But then you see in this issue in particular, things really change because of it. So it's such a
Yeah.
brilliant idea, but you have to be a hardcore Radiant Black fan to appreciate it. I feel like if you're a casual fan, I think it's too much.
Yeah, and it is very interesting the way it's doing it, because it's not simply just telling it from a different perspective. It's more like two alternate endings to a story told simultaneously. So it's very interesting how that's playing out, and to get the full story, or to get the full experience from both characters, you know for lack of a better term, points of view, you do kind of have to read it all, right? Because it's very different experiences depending on it's almost a choose your own adventure, like whose story you're going to follow, Nathan's or Marshall's. And I do like that a lot, but it is a lot to read, especially when, like you said, you're reading the same story, just two different versions of it.
And you're reading like 20 books in that week.
Yeah, and these issues, these two in particular, were very. I hate overusing the term wordy, but they were very wordy. It was a lot to read when you're reading it twice. So yeah, and like we said, I had like 23 books this week, and so reading those two with the 21 other books was a lot. But
And
yeah.
I kind of wonder, Comic Nation's point. It's like I wonder if it lost momentum because of the delays, because it's doing something so overly
Hmm.
ambitious, not just for one
Yeah.
issue, but for a while. It's like for a couple months they're doing this. I think it's already enough hard to sell in the direct market, especially superhero books. So I feel like they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot a little bit.
Yeah,
I love the innovation, but I think they do need to like dial back a little bit.
it's it's a little early in the life of the series for something this involved, I
Hmm.
think. Even though I like it, I love the whole universe. This is like this whole universe is one of my favorite things in comics right now. I love the Radiant Black stuff, but at the same time, it's like not to compare things because this does in ways remind me of my love for Invincible when it was coming out. But not to compare things in that way, but Invincible waited a while to get to the big war, you know, and we're getting that big war, and it's not just in the one book. It's like involving other characters from other books, miniseries, and stuff like that we've seen. Um, and it is just a lot. All again with delays and everything they're throwing at you, and the unique storytelling, and it's just a lot to keep up with, especially when you're reading so many other books. So that's
Yeah.
the only thing. It's like if this was the only thing I'm reading, like the Massiverse stuff, it's like I'm in heaven, right? Like if you're really loving all these books and this universe, then you're good. But if you're reading so many other things, it's going to be hard to keep up with it.
And I think for the direct market in particular, it's really hard because that's a
Yeah,
place where you want monthly releases. And I feel like if you're doing this on like maybe like Kickstarter would be a better place because then it's like that is a place for innovation a little bit more where you could kind of test the waters a little. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting though. And I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm obviously not dropping Radiant Black anytime soon. It's just
yeah.
those first two issues got a little frustrating.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. Yeah. We were talking about Rogue Sun right before we came on, I think.
We are,
So,
yeah, we were. We're
yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk more about it this week too,
Yeah.
because I think it came
I
out.
I couldn't yeah, it did. I couldn't remember if we talked about it on live or pre-live, but
I'm pretty sure
yeah,
we
it's
talked
in
about
our
pre-live,
yeah, it's in our list to talk about, so we'll definitely talk about it. But next up we're going to talk about Punisher though. Which
which
man,
you
books I
read.
haven't gone back to
I'm
in a
not
while.
reading Punisher.
Okay. Um this I mean it's more the same from the first issue. It's like we now know this guy is being mistaken for a new Punisher or whatever, and it's more of him just trying to track down the people responsible for taking out his family. So you don't really learn more about him except for you learn something about his wife and why his family was targeted, and that it had nothing to do with him. It was because she was a secretary who followed a money trail that she shouldn't have followed, and that got her family killed. So that's kind of where we're at. It's a very similar story to Frank Castle's. His name is Joe Garrison. Garrison Castle. It's very on the nose, this series, but it's fine. It's a fine book. Long term, will it hold my interest? I don't know about that, but for now it's okay.
Um, we also have a question from
Yeah,
Micah Henry. What warrants you guys dropping a book? How long do you give something a chance?
good
It's more of a
question.
feeling. Yeah, I don't know if that was there's
Yeah,
so many people that are like, oh man, it's a 3 issue thing, and then I drop it. But I think it's
yeah,
more of if I'm not enjoying something, and I think because and I hate to say we've been reading comics for so long, but because you're reading comics so long, you read a first issue, you kind of get a gist if you want to read more. I think for me, it's like, is the cliffhanger interesting? Is there some sort of character that I'm ingrained with? And then, I think the ones that are harder are the ones you've been reading for a while. You're like, well, I've invested this much time. I kind of want to see it through. But sometimes those are the ones you do have to drop. And, a great example is
yeah.
World's Finest. I recently dropped that one because I
Hmm.
just hadn't been enjoying it as much as I once was. And maybe I'll go back to it if there's an arc that sounds interesting. But it's just a feeling. If you're bored and you're not looking forward to reading it, then I think that's time to drop it.
Yeah, and it also depends on like how many books are on your pull list and that kind of thing, and that plays into how I think it makes you think harder about how much you're
Or
enjoying
how a week
a
is,
series.
especially like if one week is a
Yeah,
really heavy, you're like, well, I don't really want to read 23 books this week.
yeah, yeah, and then those books end up getting cut. You tend to not go back to them because you're like, well, I didn't miss it, that kind of thing. So I guess it is more of a feeling, like you said. For me, it's also I don't even know how to put it like into other terms. It's just like if I'll get to a point with some books where I'm like, I love the characters, I love the creators, and I'm reading it, and then all of a sudden, just it feels like instantly sometimes for me, it's like, man, I really don't want to read this anymore. I'm just like, I'm done. And then when I reflect on it, I'm like, okay, well, this is the point where maybe it lost me, or compared to other books I'm reading that are really exciting me, this isn't measuring up, that kind of thing. So
No, I totally agree with you.
yeah.
I think we're on number 5 now.
Yeah. Let's go into our number 5 then. So what was your number 5 then?
Surprisingly, we haven't talked about this book yet, but Batman Santa Claus Silent Night. This is a book that I originally wasn't going to get because I thought it was an anthology. And I'm like, this sounds like a waste of time. But then I realized it was a mini series and I was like, all right, I'll give it a
Yeah.
shot. And it's just fun. It's just Santa
Yeah.
Claus teaming up with Batman to defeat Krampus. And it's good art. It's cool action, good character moments. Again, is it going to change your life? No, but sometimes there's just comics you want to have a good time with, especially during this time of year. And I don't remember the last time I enjoyed a weekly series this much. I'm actually surprised like how well crafted it is for a weekly series. But you can kind of tell this book's been in the can for a while, and I think that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. This book is so much better than I ever dreamed it could be. I really love the first issue. I thought it was fantastic. And this one was just as fun. Like you said, the character interactions between the Bat family and everything is just, every character just has their moments, and it's just, like you said, so fun. That's all you can say about this. Plus, it's canon. This is main. Sorry, I got a hair on me. This is main DCU. Man, it will not go away either. But it's so crazy to think about. Santa is one of these, famous mentors that trained Batman, and now everybody gets to find out about Santa and Krampus and all this stuff. And yeah, it's not hokey like you might think it would be, and it's just a fun story. It's
And
really
again, the
good. The art
art
is really good.
is so
Yeah,
good. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yeah, it's in my top 5 as well, just a little higher. But I
I can
did enjoy
imagine.
it.
I saw a little
Yeah.
glimpse somewhere. I don't remember where it was. Maybe it was the thumbnail. I don't know what it was, but I saw I was like, oh, Brent does like this book a lot. I really
Yeah,
don't know where I saw it.
I've been doing these shorts, these 1 minute
Mm.
review shorts on all my socials, so you might have seen it there.
That's probably it. Cause I'm like, I knew him in the
The
back of my head
thumbnail.
that you really like that book. And I know we haven't talked about it
Oh,
personally together.
I just lost my
Um,
sound. Hold on.
Brent has lost his sound. So hopefully he gets that back.
Okay,
All
it
right.
just I'm
I
back.
think, all right, good.
I didn't-
We do have that's the worst about the Bluetooth. They're great
Yeah,
because you don't have the wire, but sometimes you lose
yeah,
sound. John Stiles says, "Do you find yourself reading a comic mostly because of the writer, or if the art is kind of meh?" Yeah, I think so. I mean, if the art's meh and I'm really liking the writing, that's happened a few times. But if I'm being honest, it doesn't happen very often, unless I like really like a character. Like if it's a Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen or Stephanie Brown, I tend to want the whole experience to be great. But yeah, I mean, I think vice versa too. Sometimes you read stuff that the art's really good and the writing's just okay. I think it just depends on what you're feeling. But those are probably the books that you're going to move on from. Those are books you'll probably drop at some point. I think Tim Drake's a good example where I didn't even really understand if I liked the writing or not because I really just disliked the art wasn't for me.
yeah. It's hard. That's a hard question because it's just like you said. If it's really good writing and it's okay art, I can handle it, and vice versa. If it's really good art and it's okay writing, but if it's like bad, okay, I won't say bad art, but like art that's not to my preference, that I just really don't like at all, um, and the writing isn't like phenomenal, then I can't get through it. And vice versa. If it's really gorgeous art, but the storytelling is so weak in my mind, or it's just not for me, I can't get through it either. So
Yeah.
it, it really is the perfect marriage of the two that make a comic. So
Yeah, it's the point of comics, right? I zoom through
yeah,
the read so fast that I don't slow down to even take in all the art. Yeah, I feel like there's some books I'll take my time with, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
books I'll read pretty fast. It depends on the book, honestly. Like Spider-Gwen's a good example of something I kind of took my time with this week, and then we'll
Mm,
talk about that book later. But then there's others where, like I think Silent Night's kind of a good example of something that I kind of find myself reading very fast because it's a very
mm,
fast-paced book, but you still want to
yeah.
like savor the moments.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if it's an artist I love, I'll sit back and savor it as well. So,
Hmm.
all right. So my number 5 was actually Green Lantern, number
Oh, nice.
6. So I'm really enjoying this run. This was a battle basically between Sinestro and Hal, and Sinestro's a Red Lantern and trying to get off the planet, and he succeeds in this issue finally. And then we learn about Kilowog, which is, I don't remember if that was revealed early on or
I
not.
feel like it was a reveal for the end of this
It,
issue.
yeah, yes, that's what I was thinking. So I won't spoil that here, but
There's a
it,
certain
it
character that
was,
shows up too that's very big for the Green Lantern fans.
yeah, exactly. So a couple of big things happened at the end of this issue that we were like, okay, this just kind of changed things a little bit. And now, the stakes are a little bit higher, and understand a little bit more about what's going on. Um, I I love that the series got its momentum back, um, and I'm enjoying it again. But I'm really curious to see where it goes from here. Now that Sinestro's off doing whatever he's doing, and now we're going to focus back on Hal and this other person that came in and all that. So yeah, good issue.
I agree. I think this book is such a dark horse under the radar series because it feels
Mm,
very
yeah,
Jeff Johns, feels very old school. It moves
right.
really well. The art is amazing. I mean, the fight in this, it's a fight. Again, it's an action issue, but they do it in a
Yeah,
way that makes it feel like the characters are progressing. It's some wonderful art and some inventive sequences here. I really like this book, and this is coming from someone who just wants to see Carol as Star Sapphire, and even then, I still I'm really liking this book, even though she's not a hero right now. But yeah, I think Jeremy Adams is such an underrated writer. It showed with Flash. People love that because he does a good job at making something feel new, but also respecting what's come before. So yeah, we got a super chat here. Comic Toby, I still have my wisdom teeth. I really enjoy them. They're handy for breaking bones, pistachios, shells, apples, and carrots. I still have 2 of them, so I guess I could do that on one side of mine now.
I
The other
got
side, not too much.
yeah, I got all 4 of mine taken out when I was like 19.
Oh
I
wow.
think. Yeah, yeah. So
I
I haven't
couldn't
had them for a
imagine
long time.
4. I only actually
Yeah.
took out
Oh,
1 this time because I took 1 out years ago, like 5 years ago, and then this
yeah.
one was I needed to surgically get removed, so I was kind of sitting on it for a while, and
It,
decided to
yeah.
go for it.
In my case, they were pushing my teeth together,
Oh,
so
okay.
it was like I had to, and
Hmm.
one of them was bad. So I just went ahead and had them all out, and it was a nightmare. I
It's no
remember
fun.
I woke up. Well, I didn't know I was even out. I remember them saying 100. Then the next
Oh,
thing I
you
know, I'm
you had
sitting.
medicine for it. I
Oh,
didn't go under.
oh, they put me under. Yeah. Um, and I remember screaming at my mother because she was with me, and she was like, "Let's go home." And I'm sitting in a chair, just like in a waiting chair. And I started screaming at her, saying, "No, they gotta take my teeth out." And I'm
It's
like,
like it's
got
already
gauze on
done.
my mouth, blood everywhere, And she's just like, "You've already done it." And I'm like, "No." And I would not believe her, and I would not budge for a
I will
few
say it's very
minutes.
quick for anyone who's ever nervous about getting your wisdom tooth done. It is actually a very quick process.
Mm.
I almost fainted when I got mine done, so that was fun. But again, I wasn't under, so it was just like I think it was just all the Novocaine going in. There was like 4 shots, and I
Gotcha.
was like feeling it, and I was just already anxious. So I was just like almost passed out. So
Yeah.
that was fun. I'm glad
That was the
I like
first.
kind of live close to my dentist, so I could just go
Oh
home.
yeah. That was the first time I ever went under. I've only been under twice. That
Oh
was the first
damn.
time. Yeah, the
I feel
other
like
time
that's a
was
lot
my
of people's
gallbladder.
time.
Yeah,
That's one you
yeah,
definitely want to be under
yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like wisdom teeth is probably a lot of people's first time going under. But you have the choice not to or to do it. And I think if I was getting all 4 done, maybe I would have. But
Oh yeah.
I decided,
like, yeah, put me under. No.
I don't want to see
Brand don't
this.
do pain well.
It wasn't painful. That was good. I think everything after the
Mm.
fact was very painful. It was more of like the swelling and my tooth is not
Yeah.
there anymore.
I don't handle that kind of thing well, so never have.
So you're like, I want to be out for it. But thank you for the super chat, Toby. That's the update on the wisdom teeth. It's good now. And Brant's been good for a couple of decades with his wisdom teeth.
been a minute. Yeah, been a minute. All right, let's
I don't even know
let's
where
move
I'm
on.
I think we're on. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on to the next book, which is Batman and Robin, number 4. Speaking of the Bat family, I wish Mike was here because I want to see if he's dropping it, because I know he hasn't been loving this, but this one didn't focus on. This was more action oriented, which is what he was wanting. So I'm curious what he thought about this issue.
I like this issue more than the previous ones, but it's still not as good as I want it to be. Like, I like the idea that we actually got to learn more about that villain who I have not cared about until, I won't say care now, but yeah. But I was like, oh, that's cool. We continue to get these teases about school. I just want to see him at school. But also, it's so interesting that Williamson writes this book. He wrote the previous book, and there's so much like progression he made in that previous book that is not found here. Like the whole school aspect, you would think he wouldn't be as nervous because he kind of went to that already. So it feels weird. It feels like 2 very different books.
I really wonder if it's like with Robin and his supporting cast in that book, it was like, well, there's not a lot of rules with Robin. You can kind of go outside the box, do this and that. But with Batman, when you bring Batman in, it's like, oh, well, we got to keep this, So maybe it's a little bit of kind of, yeah. But I mean, maybe it's trying to find that balance of what he can push and what he can't, and getting a feel for that. But at the same time, now that we have that character at the school, maybe we'll see more of the school aspect of it, because now he has a reason to be there, which I did like that they built up to that. And I did like the foreshadowing of, it was very obvious early on in this issue, oh, that's got to be her. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I thought this was a fun issue. Yeah. Didn't quite make my top 5, but it was good.
Same.
Yeah.
I think it's actually number 6 on mine. There you go.
Nice. It was I don't even know where I put it. Not number 6. Yeah. All right. So next up, we're gonna talk about Spider-Gwen. Spider-Gwen Smash. So
I was pleasantly surprised by this one, and we will talk about the news of Spider-Gwen coming back. That I have different thoughts on, but I shouldn't say pleasantly surprised, because Melissa Flores is a great writer, has been doing great on Power Rangers. But this is exactly what I want a Gwen book to be. I want her to interact with her other her supporting cast, which she does here. I love how much music's involved. I like the expansion of Earth 65 by introducing Dazzler. It introduces a really interesting plot. This is how you should do a miniseries, progressing the characters all while trying to keep the story pretty contained. So I thought this was a really good issue.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I was pleasantly surprised, because the last couple I've been like, it's just,
they just been fine.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure I finished the last one. I think I fell off of it. Like I got 3 issues in, and then I was like, I'm just not loving it. So but this one, I really enjoyed it. I love getting back to the music, picking up that same thing with Mary Jane being frustrated with her about not just the band, which I appreciated that they clarified that here, that she was more talking about putting them first, which that made it a little bit more meaningful, and the expressions on the characters' faces in this issue really sold the story as well. And then, like you said, bringing in Dazzler and the other character, and making it more interesting. And now there's like this secret villain behind the scenes pulling strings and all this stuff. It was a very well crafted story, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to our number 4 then. So I'll start because it's a book, and again, I wish Mike was here, because he reads it. I know you don't. It's called The Madness. It's number
Okay.
5. It's the penultimate issue of the miniseries from AWA. This is a really good series, and this was one of the better issues of the series for me. This she was it started off with her talking to her other personality, kind of working through when's enough, and like, does she stop at the superhero team that killed her family, or does she go beyond that to all the government officials and all the people behind the scenes that had something to do with it? And she's having this crisis between herself and trying to figure out. And ultimately, you know, we still don't know the answer, and she's just going to find out after the superhero team whether she continues this quest or not. But there was some interesting stuff with another origin story of one of the superhero characters, how they got their powers. And it was basically they took on this Iron Fist kind of person, but they did it in an unconventional way, and they were really powerful, but she managed to figure out a way to take them out. And there was a lot of commentary in this issue as well about the power of women in this world that is dominated by men, you know, as our real world tends to be, unfortunately. But yeah, there's just so much to love about the series that I could sit here and talk about it for a while, but I won't, because you don't read it and I'd bore you. But it's a really good series, and I wish it was longer, but it makes sense that it's
How long
finite,
is it?
considering it's only 6 issues.
6.
But considering, you know, she's just getting revenge on the people that kill her family, it makes sense that it would be finite. But I would love to see like a follow-up with this character, because she's a really interesting character. And I think you'd like the character.
It
Just
sounds
because of,
good.
yeah. Just
I
because
wish
of all the split
Mhm.
personalities and all the inner stuff that she struggles with and everything. It sounds like something up your alley. But yeah.
I wish I read it with issue 1. It's so hard to tell unless in issue 1's like a, you know, kill your darlings,
Right.
if it's gonna be like something you need to read. We do have 2
Yeah.
comments here. So Comic
Sure.
Toby, thank you for another super chat. Okay, my comic book pick of the week is City Boy. I'm thrilled by new characters in a series each year. Last year we got Monkey Prince. Who's next? We'll see who's next. I don't know. It's hard to tell when it's a new character, but you never know. John Stiles says, what comics pages, splash pages last resonated with you? Mine do a power bomb and 8 billion genies. Oh God, splash pages?
Wow.
I don't know. I read too many books to remember.
Yeah. I did not remember. I mean, Do a Powerbomb had some great ones. I'll give you that for sure.
Yeah.
So
I actually just got my Do a Power Bomb shirt. He is selling some. I literally just
nice.
got it in the mail. So I'm seeing that new wrestling movie, The Iron Claw, on Thursday. So I was like, man, I'll wear it
Wow.
for the
Interesting.
movie. I know Aquaman comes out this week, but I was like, that's gonna
Yeah.
be in theaters forever. This random wrestling movie is not gonna be in theaters
No, not at all.
forever. There's a lot of movies coming out too. So
That's funny that you're going to see the wrestling movie.
I know. I like a good
I
I like a good biopic. So I was like,
gotcha.
and I like the Bear a lot, and the
Yeah.
main actor from there is in it.
Right.
So
Yeah, for sure. I know the history of that wrestling family. I used to watch them way back in the day. So, and they're actually from Dallas. So
Oh wow.
yes, they wrestled in all over Texas for years and years. But yeah, it's I'm gonna see it eventually, obviously, but it's
I'll
not
let you
one
know if it's good.
Lisa's really wanting to see, though. I don't think so, you know.
Which is is there any movie theater movies you wanted to go see, or just more wait until they go online?
There was but I don't remember what it was. I'll have to
Wonka
go look.
comes out, Aquaman, Poor
Yeah.
Things.
Poor Things is one that we wanted to see, actually. Lisa wanted to see that as
This
well.
came out, so you might have a chance.
Yeah. What was the other one, the first one you said?
Wonka.
Wonka?
Yeah, Wonka comes
Like
out.
Willy Wonka?
Yeah, there's like a origin story for him.
Oh, Lisa would want to see that. I would actually be curious to see that as well. So
It got pretty good
maybe
reviews.
that.
I'm actually looking now to see, but no, I want to see Poor Things too. But we all want to go see Poor Things, and we're not all free when we're gonna go see Iron Claw, so we got to wait for that. Let me see what else comes out. Aquaman, Hunger Games, Trolls, Godzilla, and Anyone But You, which was like a romance movie. Godzilla we saw last week. It was solid.
I want to see that. Lisa, and
Not as much.
oddly, she doesn't want to see the Hunger Games either. She's like, you know, it's not the you know, it's whatever.
I
So,
pass on Hunger
yeah.
Games too. There's too much coming out. I was like, do I want
Yeah,
to see Hunger Games? I think I'm okay.
yeah. We'll probably wait on the Godzilla one just because, like I said, she's not totally invested in that. I just started watching today, actually,
Mhm.
that there's an Apple series, Monarch Legacy of Monsters. It's Godzilla and King Kong and all that.
Oh, that's cool.
First episode was pretty good.
The Boy and the
Anyway,
Heron comes out too. That came out, but it doesn't seem like it's staying in theaters for long. But anyways, those are
mhm,
movie talk. We'll
yeah.
go to the next thing. I don't even remember what we're up to.
Right.
I think we're
I
I don't
think
know.
we're up to year number 4.
Okay. Mine's Beast World. So we already talked about it.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So we already talked about Silent Night. So Rogue
So we
Sun.
got Rogue Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a book that I like, but it's very mythology driven. It's a little there's
Mhm.
character in it for sure, but there's so much going on in every issue that it's hard to I don't want to say follow it, but it's hard to love it. And I like the
Yeah.
book. So it's just one of those things that feels like a middle of the road book in my pull right now.
I'll be honest with you. When I started reading this issue, I was like, did I read last issue or the issue before?
Right.
And I know I did. And it's like I was so lost and confused to where things left off that I had to like really refresh my memory, because there is so much going on, and it's not a bad book at all. I enjoyed the book, and I enjoy the history of the characters and everything. And in this issue in particular, we kind of saw finally Marcus do something and you know get some retribution and finally break through to the back to the real world or whatever, right? So that was interesting. At least you know there's some movement, but I felt like we were stuck in that like realm while Caleb was masquerading as Dylan for so long. It feels like it's been so long since we've seen the main character of the book be the main character of the book, and
Yeah.
it's been a little hard, but yeah, it's a book I want to love like you, but it has slowed way down, and I want it to get back, you know,
I agree.
past this part, and you know, we'll see what happens with it though.
We do have a question from Park. Good luck. Are you
Yeah.
watching the Rebel Moon movie, the Zack Snyder movie? It's not the first thing on my list. It looks very high sci-fi, so we'll
Mhm.
see. If I'm bored one day, maybe I'll watch it in the background, but it's not something I'm rushing to.
I will watch it because it's probably most likely a movie that Lisa's not going to want to watch. So you know, those are easier for me to put
Hmm.
time into watching. So us trying to match our schedules to watch a movie is like nearly impossible.
I can
Um,
imagine.
it, yeah, we finally watched Barbie like
I was just
last night.
thinking about that movie. For some
Yeah.
reason, I was thinking like, oh, did you guys see Barbie? That's a solid movie. I'm curious to see if it'll stay in my top 10 of the year, but
Mm,
it's solid. I like it. I hope you enjoyed it
yeah.
too.
I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. She
Yeah.
really liked it, but you know, it's like there were some moments in it that I was like, okay, that's really good, or that was really funny, but overall, it's probably not a movie made for me. But I still
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
I think
Yeah.
I had very high expectations and I don't know if they were completely met, which is why it's a little lower, but I think it still fills top number one movie of the year. So
Mm,
and Spider-Man kind of went down. I don't even think it's in his top 10. So and
wow.
Spider-Man surprisingly is not in my it's in my top 10, but it's not my number one.
Yeah,
I'm going to be
that is
doing
surprising.
a newsletter for the top 10 movies in about a week or so. So look forward to it because
Nice.
we've been building up to it all year because we're big Letterbox fans. So we've like been making our list and we've been like doing ticking which movies we saw. So we're excited, probably more excited for that one than even the top 10 comics because like I read the comics. I talk about comics every week. So but the top 10 movies we've been preparing for.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I look forward to your newsletters. I read them
Thank
every
you.
time. Yeah, they're good content. Um, yeah, I did. Maybe I didn't read last issue because Comic Nation is saying I might have missed the part where Dottie captured the powers of the villains and gave them to Dylan's family, and the ghosts are the villains on the sidelines coaching them. I don't remember this at all, so maybe I forgot to read last issue.
I remember it
funny.
in this issue, but I don't remember it very
Yeah,
much from the last issue. So
right.
maybe, I mean, I definitely read last issue, but maybe it was a quick thing that happened.
Maybe it was. Maybe I just missed it. Maybe I read it really fast or something. And could have been one of those weeks. Rogue Sun is usually one of those books that I'm reading at the very end. Like it was one of the
Mhm.
last couple of books I read before we came live. So yeah, it's quite possible. All right. Let's see. That was your. Was that no?
Oh
That
no,
was
that
Rogue
was
Sun Drop. So
our
now we're up to our number
number.
threes.
Yeah, we're on number 3
Yeah.
now.
All right. So what was your number 3 then?
Mine was Radiant Black, where we talked about it.
Okay. Mine was White Widow, number 2. So I
So
really
you're
love
still
this
enjoying it.
series.
Yeah.
I love it. This is like right up my alley. This is if you took Florence Pugh off the screen and put her in the comic, this is that book for me. I think it's like the perfect version of White Widow for me. And I love the environment that she's in this small little town trying to acclimate to regular normal life, and then this everything is all these assassins are coming out of the woodwork and kind of pulling her back into the fold and all this stuff, and it's just fun and it's quirky, and yeah, I'm just having fun with it. I really enjoy it. So
I'm glad you
is what
enjoyed
it
it.
is. Yeah,
But that's what comics are there for.
yeah,
Some people, it's hopefully there for everyone's different tastes. So, someone who dislikes a book might love a book and vice versa.
yeah. Indie Key Comics, thank you, and it says we're doing great, and asks where
Thank you.
Mike is. We I don't
We
know.
don't
He might
know.
have fallen asleep.
He was supposed
Maybe
to
he
come
fell
on.
asleep. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. He told us he was coming. He was excited. He was telling us, we were talking earlier about all the books that we had tomorrow and all this stuff, and yeah, we don't know. So I'm assuming that he had a busy day, fell asleep, and we'll hear about it later. That's my
That's what
guess.
we're assuming too. Yeah, we thought he was coming on today, so
Yeah,
we know as much as you guys. But yeah, I'm sure you'll find out in the hall tomorrow.
yeah. All right. All right. So that was our number 3. So we're moving on to Immortal Thor. So
I think I might drop this
yeah.
book. I just like not even Jane could save it for me. There's parts that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. It was cool to see like all these Thors together, but there's just
Mhm.
something about it I'm just not invested in.
I was for the first 2 or 3 issues, I really
Mhm.
enjoyed it, and then by this issue, I found myself like this was literally the last book I read, I think, or maybe the next to last book I read before we went live, um, and I found myself just like rushing through so much of it, and then I realized how abruptly that battle with Torinos, this great villain, was, that they just like tricked him basically, and it's like, okay, you're done, and now we're moving on to the next thing, which is a less interesting thing to me. So it's like, man, if I'm not enjoying these past couple of issues, am I going to enjoy something that I'm even less invested in? So I might be right there with you, actually.
Yeah, it's a shame because the art's really good, and I think there's
Yeah,
pieces that I like about the book. I
yeah,
don't think it's something I could like completely write off where it's like a
right,
horrible book, but it's just yeah, there's a lot of books out there. If you're not fully
yeah,
enjoying it, if Jane Foster's not the main character, then you can drop it.
yeah. And it's like the Thor core. We saw them more last issue, but here it was literally a couple of pages, and then all you saw was Loki, Jane, and Beta Ray Bill. Like Throg just disappeared. I don't even know what
Mhm.
happened to him. It's like
I think
whatever.
Storm was
But
in this. They highlighted
yeah,
her a
Storm.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah, but more last issue with all that. So
Mhm.
anyway, might be a drop for us. I think Mike already dropped it.
It seems like it. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
dropped it.
And we already talked about Green Lantern, so we'll move on to our number 2s, which mine was Batman Santa Claus, Silent Night. So already talked
Mine
about
was
that.
mine was Green Lantern, so we already talked about it.
All right, so there we go. All right, so let's see. We got Miles Morales, which you don't read, or did you read
No,
this issue?
no, I
Okay,
don't read Miles.
okay. I thought maybe because it tied into Gang War and stuff, but yeah.
Mhm. I actually read
Um,
Daredevil this week. I'll interject real quick about that. I was
yeah,
pleasantly surprised as someone who's not reading Daredevil. I was like, oh, this
that's
is
pretty
actually
good.
pretty fun, and I like Electra's
Yeah,
voice a lot. And Luke Cage continues to be very solid. So maybe I should be reading Miles Morales, but
I honestly, I think of those three, Miles was the weakest one.
Oh, interesting.
Which, and I'll get to Miles in a second. Daredevil, I really liked. I thought it was really good. And I'm not loving the Daredevil series, which
Same.
is more focused on Matt right now. But this Elektra, I really enjoyed that. Luke Cage, I thought issue 2 was better than issue 1 for me. I know you guys really liked issue 1, but I didn't love
No,
it.
this issue was better because it's, more about the gang war. It's more about them teaming
Yeah,
up. So the
and it
artwork is
more
just
about
okay. And I'm not saying this is a
yeah,
perfect book because obviously I don't think it's in our
right,
top fives, but it's just a
right.
fun book and it's characters you normally don't get to see. And one thing I've been loving about Gang War is the tie-ins make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was basically the Defenders from the Netflix stuff, right? Without uh
Uh,
jeez.
Punisher.
Yeah, without Punisher. But you had, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, and Danny was in there as well, even though he's not Iron Fist. So it was just, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Miles, the fun parts were there was a flashback to him learning how to use his sword from Colleen Wing, and kind of sparring with the Daughters of the Dragon. So that was the fun part of it. But the rest of it was just him fighting these no-name villains, and he basically called them. He was like, "Oh, really? These guys? These are who I'm fighting?" Coming out of the woodworks and getting involved, and I don't even remember their names. They were like Bumblebee themed and stuff like that. So it was just like, whatever. But yeah, the stuff with the Daughters of the Dragon, I really enjoyed it, and that's tying into more of the stuff that we've seen previously before Gang War. But the actual Gang War stuff, he wasn't really involved in the bigger parts of it in this issue. And then we got a recap of him chewing out Spidey. So it was just okay, unfortunately. But
I'm glad I'm not missing anything then.
yeah. And then we had Titans Beast World Tour Gotham, which is the one I was getting confused earlier. My only criticism of this one, like the main story I thought was fine. It wasn't as good as the main Titans Beast World series. But the backup stories I just didn't enjoy. So, and I thought they could have been a little stronger. So,
Yeah, they're just fine, honestly. It's so hard
yeah.
because I've been enjoying Beast Worlds. I want to see where
Hmm.
these tie-ins are going, and then like the next one's in Flash's city. So I'm like, oh, that
Right.
sounds cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're fine. They're not. You don't need to pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So that was that. We're up to our number ones. Mine's Beast World. So no secret there, really.
And my Spider-Gwen. So
Oh, yeah. No
also no
secret there
secret.
either.
There, no surprise issue number ones here.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are all the comics. So I think we're gonna jump into, well, I have a Kickstarter, so I'll talk about that first, and then we'll go into the main topic of our best
Yeah.
comics. But let me pull it up. I know, surprisingly, have a Kickstarter before Christmas, but honestly, and this is more a conversation I think for me and Brant. But if you guys follow Kickstarter, it's actually been a really good time for Kickstarter because there's no projects out. So a book that
Hmm.
costs
Nice.
us really next to nothing to make has been doing really really well. And that's our crossover Pride variant. It we're doing like Violet Daughter and Haunting, a very small run where we're reprinting it and doing a Pride variant cover for our Pride events. So this is something new we were doing. We've also never done a December campaign. So we've been really, really happy with it and glad that everyone's as excited about this variant cover as we are, and being able to sell a book that's not as queer to a queer audience, and maybe vice versa. So we're excited. And so honestly, a book we're super proud of, and Brant also lettered the book, so he's
Yes.
also involved in it. And it's a book that we still love. It's a one and done with horror and superheroes. So if you like ghost zombies and like Scooby Doo adventures, this is a great one. And again, there's not much of a big investment because it really, you don't have to read the previous books to get
No.
into this. And then you could also get into those books if you like any of the characters. So we always recommend this book if you've ever wanted to get into any of our books. This is like the perfect one to do. So
This
hopefully you guys
was
check it out.
such just to plug my side of this. This was
Mhm.
such a fun project to work on. It was so much fun to letter this. The art is beautiful. The story is great. It's fun. Like Kat said, you don't need to know anything going into this. You can just go in and have fun with the story. It's a really good story. So
Thank
I
you.
recommend it. Yeah.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
again, it's so weird because it started our partnership between me and Phil for our comics, and then also it just like it's just something we look back at fondly. So it's cool that we were able to do something with it
Yeah.
and still kind of keep it going. So yeah, so go check that out. Let's start talking about our best comics of the year. So, like
Let's
we
do it.
alluded to in the beginning, we used to do an award show, we used to do posts, but we found this to be maybe a better way to talk. So we'll go like naming some titles. I don't think we're gonna do like top 10 or anything. We're just gonna
No.
talk about our favorite books. So I'll pass it to Brant, then me, Brant, and me, and
Okay.
we'll go from there. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, so just looking back through some of my stuff, and I for some reason I was thinking this came out last year, but it did come out this year. Hellcat. I
Oh,
thought that
that's
was
such
a
a good book.
really, yeah, such a fantastic book. I know Mike couldn't get into it, but Kat and I really loved it. One of the best miniseries I read all year. I love the art, and that was something I remember on a past episode being like, I don't know about this art, and then when I got into it, it's like, man, it just the storytelling in that art and the expressiveness was so good, so strong, and it fit the storytelling so well, and just I don't know, I just really loved it. It was very atmospheric, very emotional. Yeah, go ahead.
It was very No, I was just gonna say it was very introspective, which I really, really
Yeah,
liked because I don't think
absolutely.
Marvel or even DC does that as often as they used to, where you get these like really intense, like moody books, and this is just so
Yeah,
moody. But what I liked about it too is it's such a celebration of Patsy's character. It's a writer and
right.
creative team that understands her, but also lets her grow in certain regards. It's a book I feel like most people didn't read but should have.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. That's one that I would recommend going and checking out. I love when any creator takes one of these characters that I won't say forgotten about, but just less used,
Mhm.
and like does something special that makes you stand up and take notice. And it's like this is definitely one of those instances with Hellcat that just man, this was the best Hellcat I'd ever read, I think. So
By far. And
highly
I know a
recommend.
lot of people like the cartoonier one that came out, but it's just a very different Hellcat. I think that's more for the
Yeah,
fans
and
that
that was
like the
fun
romance
too,
stuff.
though.
Yeah, it was a good
Yeah.
solid book. But this is
Mhm.
what I kind of always want from Hellcat is like
Right.
this side of her. So um
Absolutely.
but one I want to highlight is actually the only DC book, surprisingly, on my list this year, which is surprising because I mean I think DC's been doing a good job. I just think they've been putting out a lot of solid books, but not a lot of mind-blowing books. But they have
Mhm.
also not been putting out a lot of bad books either. So my favorite
Yeah.
being Superman. I just think this is such I never thought Superman would ever be on my top 10 list. I don't love the ongoings usually. And I just think it does such a great job at progressing the story, doing something new, but still feeling very old school. The artwork, it's always the same artist too, which is rarity in ongoing books and having such splendid artwork with the same
Yeah.
artist. So I've been very impressed by this book.
Yeah, Superman's been another favorite of mine too, and there are certain eras of Superman that I've really enjoyed, but it's been a long time since I've really loved the Superman main series, and this is one that I've really loved. Um, so yeah, I look forward to it every month that it comes out. So, speaking of Superman, I really enjoyed Adventures of Superman John Kent as well.
Mm.
So we were really hesitant about that one going in. Now there were a couple issues that were, you know, but the
But the
whole thing,
Injustice, Gods Among
yeah,
Us was
the
a great
injustice stuff,
tie-in.
right? Exactly what I was about to say. When that crossed over, it's like, oh man, this is pretty cool. So really enjoyed that one as far as Superman goes. Um, yeah.
Yeah. For me, Hulk, I never
Mm,
thought there would be a series for me personally that would be on the same level as Immortal Hulk and still feel different and not feel like it's copying anything. And I really love horror, and I feel like there's so many horror books out there, but not enough that feels unique and have its own voice. And I feel like this book feels unique and has its own voice, and also feels new to Hulk, but also again celebrates what the Hulk's all about. I've been really, really enjoying this. I feel like over the years I never knew how big of a Hulk fan I was until like the past 5 years, where I'm like, maybe I really
Mm,
do like Hulk, because it's never like a character that I tend to talk about, but it's a book that
yeah.
if it's good, I tend to gravitate towards.
Yeah. It's so funny because like I grew up with, the Bill Bixby Incredible Hulk, TV show and stuff. And
Hmm.
I loved Hulk because of that. But in the comics, I could never get into Hulk. And then it was like Planet Hulk that like really spoke to me, but I couldn't get into Immortal Hulk. So it's I have this love-hate relationship with the Hulk, I think. So it's really funny.
I've noticed it too, but
Yeah.
also I feel like
Have
you're a
you?
very different fan of horror, right? Like me and
Yeah.
you like horror, but not in the same vein. I think me and Mike like. I
Right.
think me and Mike have a very similar taste in horror, so
Hmm.
I think that's also a big difference of why maybe we liked Immortal, and even
Yeah.
this more than you liked both those series, because you also didn't like Immortal Hulk.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. No, I completely agree with you on that. Um, Punisher.
Yes.
Punisher,
Hmm.
man. I know it's like polarizing because there's our fans out there like when the real Punisher with the real symbol and all this stuff and all that. But man, that series blew me away. It was, and when you realize that it's mainly about his late wife and
Hmm.
returned wife and everything, more so than about Frank, it just opens up your mind even more. And it's like, man, this is just so intelligent and so different, so unsuspecting. You wouldn't think that a Punisher book would grab you like that if you're not a Punisher fan. And I'm not typically a Punisher fan. So for that book to get a hold of me like it did, and like dive into like the origin and the all the stuff that's behind what made Frank Castle the Punisher to begin with. It's just, and yes, technically it's a retcon. I don't care. It gave levels and depths to the Punisher that I never knew existed, and I'm so thankful for them existing now because it makes me care about not only him but his wife and that whole journey. It was just a good book, and the art was fantastic too.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
no, I think it's a book, and you can't say this about so many runs because again, there's so many books that come out and years pass and you forget about things. But it's a book that I think
Yeah.
will always stay with me. I think it's a book I'll
Hmm.
always remember because I don't like Punisher, because I've
Right.
never enjoyed a Punisher run, and it really shows
Yeah.
that with the right writer, you could love any character. Because I think the character is really not built for us, right? For the stuff that we normally like.
Yeah.
But I love the twist of the wife, like you said. I think making it about her was so brilliant and poetic, and still having like the hand mythology kind of in the background, I think worked. And the artwork,
Right.
every issue really um nailed the emotion, nailed the action. So yeah, that's a great book. I love Punisher. It's just one I'll remember for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn into indies for a second and talk about Dark Ride. I know this is one that Brant does not read, but I'm a theme park fan. I like theme parks, and I think the mythology of theme parks is interesting. And I like horror, so that's a good mix. And I like that you can look at issue 1 and look at like issue 5 and see the series has changed a lot, and it's just Williamson at his best. So I think if you enjoy all those genres, you're gonna enjoy this one. It's a fun ride.
Yeah, I'm glad you and Mike still are enjoying that book.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just not for me. That's all.
Again, I
It's
think
not a
it's
bad
it's
book.
the horror it's the horror element.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
the
you like,
horror.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the type of horror, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's just yeah. Because I love theme parks too. I mean, who doesn't,
Mm.
right? But yeah, it's just that. Let's see, where do
It's
I want
also
to go
more of a
next?
horror book than a theme park book. They don't actually show the
Yeah,
theme parks that much.
right. Yeah, exactly. Um, I'm gonna go with the Flash when Jeremy Adams was on it,
Mm.
the whole 1 minute war stuff and all that. That was just, it was so good. And we've gotten I don't want to, like, for me, Flash hasn't hit like I want Flash to hit for a
Mhm.
while. And I would keep trying the book and I would drop the book and I would try it and I would drop it. And it was like this endless cycle because I could just never, and I love the Flash characters. I love the whole Flash family. They're some of my favorite characters. But what he did with that, at least that short pocket of the run that I read, was just so good and so I don't even know, like the thought of taking an entire war and an entire cast of characters and boiling it down to something that happens within 60 seconds and spread it over multiple, it's just so, creative, I think. And I think that's one of the things I appreciated about it. But it was also, there was so much that happened, but it was also still very fast paced. I don't know. I'm not doing it justice, but it was a really good story.
No, I agree. I kind of wish I read it before then because I didn't read his whole
Yeah,
run. And I just think
right.
I really wish Jeremy Adams was on my radar previously, but now I know anytime
Yeah,
he releases a book, you should read it. And I think Jay
yeah,
Garrick is a very similar book where not a lot of people are reading it, and I think wrote it
right.
off. But it's if you enjoyed that run, read the Jay Garrick book. It's very similar in tone.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And, again, I'm really enjoying that book as well. And going from the Stargirl, which is another book that a miniseries I really enjoyed from DC, was the Stargirl and the Lost Children. That was that this year or was it last year? I don't
If
remember.
it was this year, I think it was maybe like 1 or 2 issues that came out.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, that picks up threads from that in Jay Garrick with Judy's return and all that. But,
My next book is Kill Your Darlings because I mean we
oh
all
yeah,
love Kill Your Darlings, and when I
right.
say we all, I think anyone who reads that book, it's kind of a magical series because it's also not a big name, and we could go into the whole conversation of does big names sell books or don't they? But is that the survival of the comic industry? And I think this is the proof is in the pudding. It's not. I think giving chance, it's just good stories because these are not big names. I think, from what I can understand, they both worked on Substack as like assistants for some of these comic
Mhm.
writers, so they like had ins, but
Yeah,
they're not. This is like their first book, and then you
right.
have this amazing art by Bob Q, and it's just everything I love about comics in one. It's great storytelling. It keeps you on your toes. You don't really know what the book's about. Which I love a good comic that you don't actually fully know what a book is about, because if you spell everything out, that's not any fun. So it has really good
Yeah,
mystery, and the characters, like I said, are really charming. The world is really interesting. And I feel like I'm not even doing this series justice, but one thing I have always said is that issue one, if you ever want to be like a comic writer or you just want to understand comics better, read that book and dissect it to hell, because it is the best issue one I've read in such a long time, and because everything works about it, and just trying
yeah.
to understand why it all works, I think is so fascinating because it really is a perfect book. And I hope a perfect series, but it's just one of those things where I'm like legit excited to go to the comic store and read it.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a testament too, because it's very rare that a book resonates with all three of us
At
simultaneously,
this
and we're just
level,
all like, "Oh my, yeah, oh my God, that is so good," and I can't wait to get to that next issue.
Do a Power Bomb was the
Um,
last one, and that was like an
yeah,
obvious,
yeah, yeah. So I agree with you completely. Kill Your Darlings is just, I mean, it's everything that I want out of a story. I mean, and so far, and it just keeps getting better and better for me. So yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. I had it. Oh, Transformers. I mean, so far, it's been the best Transformers comic that I've ever read, and I've read a lot. Um, it just, he's doing things with Transformers that, speaking of do a power bomb, doing things with Transformers that you wouldn't typically think of when you think of Transformers, of giant alien robots, fighting and defending, humans against, the threat that came with them. Um, it's, and when it comes from its origins of being basically a 30-minute toy commercial, to being something this deep,
and
it's
human
just,
for
yeah,
sure.
and human and emotional and impactful. And my other earbud's about to die. It's just so good and so powerful. And I'm so glad and thankful as a longtime Transformers fan that this is a book that people that have never, like yourself, Kat, never read a Transformers book are getting into this because it's just that good.
I feel the same way about Duke because if it's anything like Transformers, it's gonna be great. I actually was
Right.
on a podcast with Lisa from Comic Book Couple. If you've never listened to her
Oh
podcast,
yeah.
you should. They're
Yeah.
so intelligent and next to us, the best podcast out there. But we were talking about Transformers, and she was saying that it's interesting because usually Transformers is about like us looking at robots and seeing like being in awe. And this book is the opposite of that. It's figuring out why should Transformers like humans. And I never really saw it that way because it really is. If you look at the 80s thing, it's like, oh yeah, let's find out why robots are cool. And then in this book, it's really finding out why humanity is cool. And I think that was just really beautifully put of why this book works so well.
That is beautifully put. Yeah, I like that. And I will say that the animated Transformers movie from the 80s, there was like some deep, dark, emotional scenes in that. Optimus dies. It's it's very heavy for a kids cartoon. But if you are a fan of that, which most Transformers fans are, this is the closest thing to that, and probably takes it to another level. So
I genuinely can't wait to see where it goes. I think that's why it was a little harder for me to put in my top, because I obviously have no Transformers connection,
yeah,
so I
we're
don't
only
know
on
where it
issue 3
goes.
too. Yeah, it's
No.
but I had to include it, just had to.
Which I'm glad you did, because it is a good book, and I'm guessing it's getting a lot of people into comics too. I'm guessing there's a lot of Transformers fans who never read comics. Let's see. I think we got to work on a Red Bull energy drink sponsorship in order to get Mike here next time. I agree. I really do think he fell asleep because he really was prepared to go on. I'm excited to find out.
Yeah, it's not like him to not say anything to us, and we haven't heard words. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why we were like, yeah, Mike's gonna come on, and we're surprised he didn't, but I'm sure he'll be listening to this podcast, agreeing or disagreeing with us, because he usually does listen the next day when he doesn't join. The last book I want to talk about is the obvious book we all know I love it, and that's Second Coming Trinity. I could spoil
I was waiting for that one to come
right?
up. Yeah,
I had to talk about it. It's my number one book. I could spoil this because I don't think my friend Dan's listening, but I got that for them for Christmas because I love the book so much. I feel like it's like in their vein of something they really like. And I personally asked them, like, do you want a comic? Because I don't like giving gifts to people that I think I'll enjoy, but I genuinely think I'm like, oh, I think you'd enjoy this. Like, no, and my friend was like, no, I want to get into more into comics. So they were reading Sandman. That's the only reason I got it, or else I wouldn't have gotten them a comic. I was like, are you getting into comics? Do you want to like get into more comics? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? So I was like, oh, cool. I have a cool book for you. And I got Second Coming for them because I think it's
nice.
It's such a beautiful book. I know you read the first issue like back way back in the day. But I think it's just a book that it handles satire so well, which is hard in any medium to handle, political satire in particular. And this is it goes past political satire. It really is it doesn't judge religion, which I think that's the easy 1-2 punch of just saying like, let's make fun of religion. But I think it's more about, again, going back to the Transformers idea. I don't think it celebrates Christianity or celebrates religion, but it celebrates humanity. It celebrates what's our connection and how far have we gone as people, and just making fun of us a little bit too. But it all in the sake of fun. And this volume in particular I really liked because we get to see this parallel between Superman's origin stories, which obviously Sunstone's based on, where he left Krypton. His parents sacrificed their lives to make him survive. And there's a similar story here with Sunstone having to make that choice about his son, but then you relate it to the character of God here doing that to Jesus Christ, and the whole entire issue is kind of paralleling that. And it's a great book. It just puts a smile on my face. I think the dialogue is just so crisp, the art is so good, and I hope this goes on for another 10 years.
Nice. Yeah, when I read that first issue, and maybe I should give it another shot. When I read that first issue, I was in a different place and I was a different person, I think. I've changed a lot over the past few years. And
when did it come out? It came out, let me look it up. I genuinely think you'd really enjoy it. Like I said, I don't think it's a book that, I think it teeters this line of, does it make fun of religion? No, but it challenges it. I think what I really love about it, and as someone who is an ex-Catholic schoolgirl, I very much love the challenge of it as someone who not to get too personal, but like has gone through spiritual deconstruction and dealt, gone through like, oh, what is life? What's existentialism? It kind of is really, it's a spiritual deconstruction without pointing out like, oh, you shouldn't believe in this or you should believe in this. I just think it really is for everybody if you give it a chance.
Yeah.
So
Did you
I
find out
think it's
when it
interesting.
came out?
Yeah, I'm gonna look up now. It came out in 2019, so it came out, believe it
Okay.
or not, 5 years ago, which doesn't
Yeah.
feel like that long ago, but COVID, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I was a completely different person back then. So yeah, I should probably give it another shot.
I think
I've
you should, even the
done
next volume, because it's pretty new reader friendly usually.
yeah, I've done a lot of introspection over the past
Hmm.
several years, and yeah, I think my fear going into it was that it was going to make fun of it, and even though I don't regularly go anywhere, I'm still a religious person.
Hmm.
So it's always kind of, but again, I'm a different person, so maybe I'll try
No,
it.
but it's good. I
Yeah,
think that this book might even be for you then, because I think
yeah,
it really is for the person who might have grown up in that ideology. And
Mhm.
again, without it, depending on which it doesn't make you choose a fork. I would say it's like you
Right,
grew up
right,
in this, you
yeah,
grew up in this system. It's not for people that strayed away, it's not for people that stayed. It's kind of like for both somehow, which is so weird how to make a
yeah,
book like that. But I think that's what's so special about it. It's like how do you talk about something like religion and not be touchy about it? Because like everyone's got their
yeah.
own thing
That's
about it.
almost impossible. Yeah,
Right.
but it's very difficult. Yeah,
But I think they do a good job at not making it touchy. I
that's
think they
good.
do in a good way where I think anyone who reads it who has an open mind, obviously, will enjoy it. So
Yeah.
give it a shot. It's really, really good. I want to keep selling this book because I feel like I'm only one reading it. Any other ones you want to shout out before we get into the news?
Yeah, I was trying to look back and I wish I could have, I was telling Kat before we went live, I couldn't find my list from like the first 3 months of the year. Um, I know Click Click Boom was another one that you and I both enjoyed. Um,
I
I don't
love,
know if
yeah.
yeah, I did really enjoy it. Uh, Man, there's like it's hard because like there's certain books that certain arcs were really good, but other arcs weren't great. Like Batgirls is one that stands out to me. It's like there was a pocket of that was really good, but previous issues that weren't. So it's like, man, what what am I thinking of this like best of the year that we haven't talked about yet? And I'm blanking.
I'm trying to think of books that you've really, really enjoyed. I
Yeah, I
think
know.
John Kent. I'm glad you mentioned that because I feel like
Yeah,
that's a book you enjoyed a lot. Someone
I
mentioned
mean,
Specs. Sadly, it didn't come out this year. It came out last year, or maybe
uh,
one issue came out this
yeah,
year. But
some of it, something at least issue 4 came out this year because I looked it up to be sure. It is included on our thumb. That's why it's
mm,
included because at least one issue did come out. So yeah, that was
we
another
love
one that we all
Specs.
really loved. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one.
Um,
Yeah, that we are on so much the same page. We're like, I'm so
yeah.
excited to read that next
Yeah.
issue. It's also a book that's really easy to get non-comic readers into. It's
Yeah.
an easy story. Again, another book I kind of wish more people talked about.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, I would have said Radiant Black, but we had that discussion earlier in the show, and it's like
Hmm.
earlier in the year, I was absolutely loving it. So,
Right.
uh, man, I'm trying to think if there's any other thing. I know if Mike was on here, he'd say Spawn Gunslinger would be one of his.
That's true.
Uh, Big
Noctera, you
Bang.
guys like that book.
Yeah, Noctera. It just there's so many like breaks and
Hmm.
delays and stuff with that. It was a little harder, but it was a fantastic series. Or is. I don't know if it's continuing on or not. I don't remember now. But yeah, it was
It's
really
on
good.
hiatus because Tony S.
Yeah,
Daniel has his new book,
right. That's right. I love
which we
Noctera. I
all
think
didn't really
great.
love. So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's so weird. Go back to Noctera. We'll love more of that. But I love the idea of Eden. Was it Edenwood? Is that
Hmm.
yeah? But man, it just I don't know. There's something about it that just didn't click with any of
I like
us.
the art.
So strange. Yeah, the art's really good.
Mary Jane and Black Cat, we didn't talk about
Yeah,
that, but if we wanted to,
that was a
I'm so excited
fantastic
for
book.
that next volume. I know Jed McKay's not writing it, but I just think they're such a cool pair. And I'm so glad
Yeah,
Spider-Man, the franchise, has now figured out that these two characters don't need to interact with Spider-Man to be characters. Because obviously, like,
right.
editorial doesn't want it, doesn't even seem like Black Cat to be with Peter. So if you don't want both of them to be with Peter, then just let them have their own adventures because they have some great chemistry. And I'm not speaking on romantic chemistry, but I do
Yeah,
think they have a really great friendship. And I, as a queer person, I think I wouldn't want to see them as a couple. I just enjoy seeing them as friends.
yeah, yeah. They have a good friendship. It's a good dynamic of two people that have been with the same dude.
Mm-hmm.
They
And
have a
they're like,
lot to. Yeah,
they have a
go
lot in
ahead.
common. No, I was just
Yeah,
gonna say they have a lot in common.
right. Exactly. And they can compare notes and all that stuff. But
They're definitely comparing notes. Power
yeah,
Rangers, I think, was really, really solid
yeah,
this year.
yeah.
That's a really consistent book. If you're looking for
Mhm.
something, I don't think it ever dips. It really does feel like the same book
Yeah,
in a good way every time it comes out.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. That was one I thought about mentioning as well. Invincible Iron Man's been a solid book. You know, this whole run as well. So I'm probably forgetting like a dozen books that I'm really like, oh man, I should have talked about this book, but that's what happens.
We talked
But
about it a lot,
anyway,
so let us
yeah,
know in
we
the
did.
comments what your favorite books were, because
Yeah,
we'd love to
please.
hear it, and maybe it'll remind us of some books too. And
Yeah,
I'd like to hear Mike, if and when he hears this, tell us his favorite books as well, because I think he usually has a little bit of differences between me and you. I think
yeah,
we're usually on more on the same page, so I think that would have been interesting.
yeah. I mean, She-Hulk will be his number one, right?
Oh right, yeah, no, She-Hulk is
She-Hulk.
definitely is number one.
He'll he would definitely agree with us on some of those though. Punisher and Kill Your
Hmm.
Darlings, Transformers, etc. But yeah, he would definitely have some different ones. Like Spawn.
Spawn, yeah,
Yeah.
Spawn definitely
Um,
being one.
yeah. All right. So I guess we'll go into
News.
the news then. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, we got Sean Gunn is playing Maxwell Lord, and I think the thing that was interesting, most interesting about this was what's his name? Zachary Levi saying
Yeah.
he's the Sean Gunn's a nepo baby for becoming Maxwell Lord. Which I don't know if I have a comment about, but I thought it was an interesting comment.
It was an
I'm
interesting comment. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I could only imagine what it does feel like to be these actors that are part of the DC, though, to be like, oh yeah, that thing I worked hard on, I want to continue doing, isn't happening, and then you find out Sean Gunn gets to be Maxwell Lord. Uh,
I mean,
but at the same time,
I
it's his brother, and they like to collaborate with each other. So
okay. So it's his brother. His brother's a good actor.
right,
He's versatile. He can play a bunch of different types of roles. I've seen him in a bunch of different things. And
Gilmore
it's also a
Girls,
character. What's that?
Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, Gilmore Girls. Yeah. Um, it's also a character that doesn't have to be anybody. Like, it could be anybody. Maxwell Lord is such a nondescript character, right? He could take any version. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't have a problem with that. I could
It's not like he's
understand.
playing like Superman, you know.
Right, exactly. If that was the case, then it's like, okay. But, he's usually some, side character or some, not as important character, which is fine. And going in, if James Gunn is directing it and he can find a role for Sean's going to be in it. It's a given. So it's just an interesting comment, like you said. But
And again,
yeah,
like some people collaborate really well. So it's probably
yeah,
like he collaborates really well with him. So why not have him on? It's like having a writing partner and being like, well,
right.
I guess not this time. He can't be around. So yeah, is look, I'm sure there's interesting things going on there, but that was honestly, I thought the most interesting part of that casting was that comment.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what version of Maxwell Lord we're getting with this version of the character now. We've already seen one version. So
Yeah. We have a comment from Chevia. How do you feel about Tom King's Wonder Woman? I've been loving it. I've been so pleasantly surprised. I really like it.
It's been really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. So
We also got a new Wakanda animated show. I mostly wanted to talk about this because not DC, Marvel Disney has been making some interesting choices of having so many shows, and then that didn't work out for them. So it's interesting that they're doing another show after they said
yeah.
they wouldn't. So I guess maybe because What If is doing solid, so maybe they're like, it will go to animation. And obviously, like Black Panther as a franchise is doing solid for them, but
Yeah.
interesting. There's I think they should stop making shows for a little while, but I think if they are going to make a show, this probably would be the franchise to do it.
Well, yeah, I agree with all of that. Yeah. So
No.
not really
All
much
right.
to add there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's get. I have no thoughts on the Kang stuff. I'm not going to touch that.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Moving into. Oh, this was something that Mike was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Scott Snyder is doing a YA series. So I just thought it was interesting that he's doing this, I think, for Dark Horse, so
Is it Dark Horse?
Comixology.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I think is interesting about it is he just does so many different stuff. And I think that's the way to survive in comics these days, is just to kind of diversify. And Scott Snyder has been pioneer for that, and I'm a little surprised because I think his wheelhouse is horror. That's what he does well. But I'm glad that he's not just doing horror, or he's at least trying to do different demographics.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting move. It's a challenge for a writer to do different things. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to, let's see, Stray Dogs getting the spinoff. I think it's called Feral, which is just
Feral,
Cat's
yeah.
version. Still haven't read Stray Dogs, but now I can. I'll just read
Okay.
this. I'll definitely be picking it up.
I'm obviously excited. Love Stray Dogs. Such a fantastic series. So
Yeah. This is a comment about Second Coming. You'll especially have the Jesus character align with Brant. He's like a representation of the audience where he gets to question things himself and get a new perspective. Yeah, that's really the whole point of the book, is that it's about opening your mind and seeing the world differently.
I lost my sound. Hold on. Sorry.
Brant didn't hear my wonderful words, and don't worry,
Right.
he's coming back. I was saying that it's about seeing the world differently. That's what the book's about. So it's cool.
Gotcha.
All right, let's talk about Batman Superman, telling the origins of Lex Luthor and Joker teaming up. I still don't know if I'm going to get World's Finest because of it, but I do think this is more in the vein of what they did well in the beginning. So,
yeah.
But also I didn't love they did an origin story where Batman and Superman first met up, and I don't think I like that arc. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was okay, but if it's more in line with like what they did with Robin and
Supergirl.
Yes, Supergirl. I couldn't for some reason it was just not hitting my brain. I kept wanting to say Wonder Girl, and I was like, that's not right.
That's not her.
Oh no, but yes, if it's more in the vein of that could be really interesting, or it could just be goofy fun. It could be more like Legion of Doom kind of goofiness, which would be fine too. But I don't know. I don't know if it'll persuade me to pick it up either, but we'll see.
All right, moving on to, let's talk about the multiverses of Wolverine. So I think this is going to spin off out of the book that's coming out tomorrow.
The original X-Men, yeah.
The original X-Men, because Christos Gage, who I really like as a writer, is going to be writing this. I usually don't like the multiverse stuff because I think it's overplayed, but there's something about this that excites me. Cover looks cool. I'm like, you know what? I mean, obviously we'll see how the original X-Men is, but I'm going to probably get this.
I just didn't have anything to say about it. It's like it's a bunch of Wolverines together. Okay.
It's like moving on.
I mean, you got to wait and see. It's one of those things like I don't know, but I do like Christos Gage. So
moving on to, let's talk about James DeMantis to write Spider-Man: Shadow of the Green Goblin. I really liked his take, obviously, on Kraven the Last Hunt, but his reimagining of it. I think it's cool that he returned that story. I think that's one of the better go back to retelling something stories. And yeah, no, I think if JM's on board, I'm interested to pick it up.
The interesting thing about this for me is that it's we learned that there was a previous Green Goblin that
Oh
didn't,
yeah.
that didn't stick or whatever. And I'm really curious to see who that is, why that was, and all that stuff. Just like, oh, there was an original Captain America, or there was an original this character or that character. It's interesting when they do that and explore that. So yeah, that's got me curious now.
No, it feels different, and it feels like you
Mhm.
should be picking up the miniseries, because sometimes these miniseries, like, why should I? And this feels like at least it's adding a new
Yeah,
layer to Spider-Man.
right.
Moving on to the new Spider-Gwen series. I was alluding to this before.
Yeah.
Stephanie Phillips is writing it, which I know a lot of people like Stephanie Phillips. I don't know how to feel about her moving to the 616 permanently. I think that just ruins everything of what makes her character fun. I don't think it worked when we saw her even traveling back and forth. I mean, that hardly even works with Miles Morales. So
Mhm.
I don't know how to feel about this book, but obviously I'll pick it up.
Yeah. I so in this issue that came out this week, there was some
Mm,
foreshadowing to that,
sure.
where she's saying like, I don't know, what there is for me here aside from that and all that stuff. And yeah, obviously there was more because, all that stuff we talked about earlier. But yeah, I think they're trying to prepare us for that. But I don't know how to feel about it either, because I agree with you. Like when she started going to college there and everything, it just felt a little off, a little weird. Miles is just now finding his footing in the 616 too, and it's
10
still,
years later.
yeah, and still it depends on the writer that's writing Miles to whether it works or not. And so that's my concern there. But I'll hold out thoughts for that until it comes
Yeah.
out. But I'm hesitant about it as well for that reason.
And at least it's ongoing, it looks like. So it's
Yeah,
not even a mini series. So, I mean, that's
that's
at
good.
least a positive.
Right.
All right, let's get into the Ghost Machine.
It's
That's
interesting.
Jeff Johns. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is really interesting. It's going to be doing an exclusive deal with Fan Expo, so they're going to have variant covers and also name other people that are part of it. It's mostly artists. You have Brian Hitch, which we'll talk about in a second. Gary Frank. We also have Peter J. Tomasi, which is part of this. There's a lot of heavy hitters here. And
Hmm.
they are going to go to every Fan Expo, or at least the big shows. So you have Orlando, which is MegaCon, Philadelphia, which I'll actually be at, Denver, Chicago, and Canada. I wonder what this means if they can't go to other shows, because exclusive
Yeah.
usually means like
Right.
exclusive, which also
Yeah.
feels so weird. Fan Expo, besides MegaCon, isn't the hugest of hugest shows. But also a lot of these, like Jeff Johns, when's the last time he's been at a Comic Con?
Yeah.
So maybe in that regard.
There's a big one in Dallas. That's the big convention in Dallas, the Spain Expo.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't even know that. And I don't even
yeah,
think it was on this list. So
yeah, and I don't know if they still do. They used to have a Toronto one.
yes,
But
they did. Let me see. It's
yeah,
Canada is the Toronto one, I
okay,
believe.
yeah. So yeah, it's interesting for a company to be exclusive to one convention chain, which I mean, like, obviously they put on a lot of shows, but it's an
It's
interesting
not a
move.
read pop, like that I can almost
Yeah,
understand, where it's like, oh yeah, they release a lot of big shows. They have
yeah,
your Emerald Cities, they have your New York Comic Cons. But then it's like,
right,
oh, are they not allowed to go to New York Comic Con or San Diego
yeah,
Comic Con? That's
right.
weird.
So no, what's the other one that they run in California?
WonderCon,
WonderCon. Yeah,
C2E2. Yeah, there's so
yeah.
many that you're
So they
like,
can't
oh,
do
that's
those.
weird.
It's so strange. But it's innovative. I'll give them that. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I hope it helps Fan Expo.
Yeah,
I
right.
think it's a show that's still trying to find its footing, because it was Wizard 2 years ago, and then
Mm,
COVID happened, and so I hope it helps bring more foot traffic, comic foot traffic. I mean, I like the
yeah,
shows, especially when they're close. I enjoy like Philly, where it's you
yeah,
don't have to stay and it's just driving distance. We usually have a good time with that, but I
it-
mean, being completely honest, there's days where it's slow. I mean, we're lucky
yeah,
because we have a large library. So if we sell like 2 or 3 boxes, we've made what we want to make. But,
right.
with, smaller creators, there's not a ton of foot traffic all the time. So I'm curious if this actually helps or not.
Yeah, it's definitely a smart move on Fan Expo's part. Well, jury's out whether it's a smart move on Ghost Machine's part or not. But
Hmm.
yeah,
I
um,
mean, money is money too. So
yeah,
because also I'm guessing they're thinking, oh, we made this money from this exclusive deal.
true.
This is how much money we would have made at these other
Yeah,
conventions. You
yeah,
add the tallies,
you're
less,
probably right. Yeah,
So I'm guessing that's also a big part.
yeah. Tevia, we had that on our thing, but none of us marked it, so we're not going to talk about E3.
Yeah,
But
we don't care
we
about video games.
I mean, I haven't watched E3 for years. I used to watch it every year, and it slowly declined. And now
Right.
it just the writing was kind of on the wall. But it
Yeah.
it's always sad to see stuff like that. But
Sure. But new era, they got
yeah,
their own shows and they got their own streams that they do, like Nintendo,
exactly.
PlayStation. I will say I'm getting the PlayStation for Christmas, so I'm gonna finally play Spider-Man. I am very excited about that. I was just like,
Nice.
you know what? I'll go back to playing Call of Duty, Resident Evil. I got a
Yeah,
couple set of games I'm gonna play, so I'm
I
excited
love
for that.
it. I want two for Christmas. I keep telling Lisa this. That's what I want. I want
The
Spider-Man 2.
PlayStation or two
No, just the game.
Spider-Man?
I have a PS5.
Okay.
I want the game. I
I thought you
played.
want two PlayStations
Yeah,
played
no.
at the same time.
I played Spider-Man, I beat it. I played Miles, I beat it. So now I want Spider-Man 2. So
I'm getting all three, so I'm gonna
yeah,
get the original Miles, and then I'm getting two. So
they're good
yeah,
games. Yeah.
yeah, and then Spider-Man fans,
Yeah,
I'm excited
absolutely.
about that. So I will be getting that. Last but not least for news, we kind of alluded to it. Ryan Hitch is leaving the Big Two. Everyone's leaving the Big Two. I think that's just the conversation. It's crazy.
Yep.
There's a bigger conversation of what this means for comics, and again, there's this huge conversation like, oh, the thing that's going to save comics is these big writers returning the books. And no, that's not, in my opinion, going to save comics because that's just going to be the same people buying comics. I think what saves
Right.
comics is diversity. It's
Yeah.
having, and diversity is a strong word to people, but what I mean by diversity is having different types of stories for different people. And, having queer stories, but then on the other hand, having horror stories, and then the other hand of that, having your popcorn flicks. I think you just need to be a manga in that way, where that's why manga's successful. They're not just superhero books. There's romance, there's superheroes, there's horror. Just diversify.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's we say it all the time. I don't want to be a broken record, but it's just an interesting time in comics. And I think all these big creators doing all this creator owned stuff is expanding the
Hmm.
readership to other types of stories. And I think it's just going to, I don't know, it leaves like the big two open for more new people to come in and discover new writers and new artists and all that stuff. So that's what
That's
we
how I
need.
feel too.
Yeah.
Hmm. And obviously the Marvel and DC thing, I think we talked about this last time, but it's just like,
Yeah.
is Marvel and DC dying? I think that's a question. Because I do think this is a struggle for them. Dying is a harsh word because it's like
Yeah.
they're never gonna go away, but they gotta change things if we're all being honest, if they wanna. I think there's
Well,
gonna be a time, especially with Transformers out right now, that Marvel and DC will not be the number one best-selling comic, and that's sad. I think it's gonna be a Transformers or Something is Killing the Children, and that's when Marvel and DC is gonna have to make changes.
yeah. I mean, but as long as they evolve and change and grow, you know, and it's what they've always managed to do. How many decades now?
Yeah,
So yeah.
they'll be okay. But yeah, let's get into the most anticipated.
Yeah, let's do that. All right.
We do
So
have Mike's most anticipated,
yeah,
so
we do. Good mix of books this week as well.
mhm,
So I think there's only one that's on both of ours, which is Kill Your Darlings for you and me,
yeah,
which
which
we've
is
kind of already
obvious.
talked about. So yeah, we don't really need to go into that. I'll tell Mike's real quick. He's his number 3 is Hulk number 7,
That
which
was close for me.
yeah, GI Joe number 302, which I have not read 301 yet. So it's not on my list, surprisingly, the GI Joe guy. But and Deviant number 2, which Mike and I both really enjoyed that first issue. I don't Did you read it, Kat? I don't
I did.
remember.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it. Okay, yeah.
I feel so bad because I always want to love James Tynion's writing, but every
Yeah.
single
That
time it's not for me.
yeah. I enjoyed it. I think Mike liked it a little bit more than I did, but I did enjoy it. So all right. So another no-brainer for me, Batman Santa Claus Silent Night. I've loved the first 2 issues. I'm looking forward to the penultimate now. So So let's talk about Wonder Woman. We also talked about that briefly earlier.
It just feels like such a different book, which I really like. I love when a superhero book can reinvent itself and just do something different with a character that we've been reading for decades and decades and decades. And this, I can't believe we've never gotten a political story about Wonder Woman in the United States. This kind of feels
Yeah.
like a no-brainer, so it's cool.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously from a writer that understands all of it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then I have original X-Men #1. I'm just curious about this. I want to see what it's all about, and like the teaser text about one of them stays in the present or whatever. And now that we know that there's another book spinning off of it, I'm just like really curious about this book and hoping it's good. So that's where I'm at with that. And then finally, Amazing Spider-Man #40 is your #2.
I've been so pleasantly surprised by Gang War, and
Yeah.
I'm genuinely excited to see where Spider-Man goes, and yeah, it's nice to have it on the most anticipated list again.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. It's about time we were enjoying Spider-Man again. So that's fun. But that's it.
I-
That's all of them. Yeah,
That's the whole show. And
that's
again,
it.
reminder, guys, we will not be on next week, but we'll be on the week after.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if
So
everything
we'll
goes
see you next
correctly.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, see you next year. That'll be an exciting show. Maybe we'll talk about books we're looking forward to in 2024. We'll see what type of topics we got then, because the
Yeah.
holidays are always interesting because you're like, will news come out? Who knows? But let us know maybe in the comments what type of topics you'd like us to talk about for the new year, and we'll get
Yeah.
to it. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Go follow us on all the social medias, and we will see you guys in the new year. Bye.
Bye.